Okay, so now we're at the end of our trap check here. We've got a couple muskrats that we've caught, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna skin them out and put them on the board. So we'll show you how we're gonna do that with one of these here. So I'm gonna get these right out of the way. Do this one we got here. So a couple tools I use. Obviously you're gonna need a knife of some kind. For muskrats, a nice smaller little knife, fairly sharp, is really good. Another thing I like to use is a pair of pliers, whether they're cutters or pliers. Just makes it easier. Taking the front legs off makes it fast. Then we have our board. And then one of the things I use as well is I actually take off any of the excess fat or flesh with just a spoon. Super simple. And then we got some tacks. Another thing that I highly recommend is a pair of gloves when you do this, because it is, you know, touching at a dead animal, and you never know what it could have. So we're gonna start by putting our gloves on here. Okay, gloves are on. First thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take these pliers, so take these front legs, I'm just gonna nip them right off. Just makes it easier later when you pull the hide off the rest of the body. So you don't need those, we'll throw them out after. We're done with the pliers. So now on muskrats, you can kind of see when you hold the back leg and then you hold it to the tail, there's a bit of a, you can actually see the transition line between the hair. That's exactly where I'm gonna make my cut on both sides. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut around the leg first, right where the hair meets kind of the skin leather area. We'll make an incision there. Just cut all the way around. Just like that. So now that you've got that, we're gonna take our knife, we're gonna run it right down that transition line. Straight through the tail. Be careful, you are using a knife, so just be cautious. So now once we have this cut here, I'm gonna switch to the other side. I'm gonna do the exact same thing. This one was actually caught by the back leg, so it's gonna come right off, but that's still fine. Same thing, we're just gonna take this knife here and we're gonna work it. Another way you could do it, some people do it this way, I don't. They go from the tail down to the leg. I'm not a fan of that way, but everybody's gonna have their own personal preference. I'll just show you that you can do it both ways. There, so we have our cut through. I grab it, just kind of pull the skin away a little bit, you know, separate it from the body somewhat. It'll make it easier for you. Another thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna take the tail, right where the fur meets the leather, we're just gonna cut around that as well, just to separate that area. We don't need that on a muskrat. So yeah, we're gonna pull that leather off. Right here, there's the anal tract. We're just gonna cut that. So your first major cut happens. Now you can pull that skin a little bit further. We'll do the same thing on the back here. We'll just make sure we give it a pull. Sometimes you gotta give it a couple cuts just to make it go a little easier. You should be able to pull it. Okay, now, once you have this started, I like to take my hand, my fingers, I put them on the back and I kind of roll it. Just use that and use your thumb, stick your thumb in there, pull it away. Same thing, separate it from the leg, just roll it. You don't have to pull overly hard. Muskrats do have a very thin leather, so you don't want to rip it at all. So just take your time, go slow. I like to roll it, use my thumb in there, pull it. Need to make a little cut here, separate it a little bit. Just use your fingers, you can just grab this extra little bit of fat, this saddle here, and you can just pull it right off. Next thing we're gonna come up to is gonna be the front legs. So now we have it like this. We're getting close to the shoulders in here of the front legs. We're just gonna pull, 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 pull. You can see now we have the front legs here and here. So all I'm gonna do is take my thumb and my forefinger, and grab it right at the elbow, push my thumb through, little pull, the leg comes right out. Same thing on the other side, thumb and forefinger, little pull, comes right out. So now we're getting up to the head. I like to grab it. I cut with the right hand, so I like to grab my left hand, and you can squeeze the tip of the nose in between your thumb, the base of your thumb or in your palm and your fingers, and it kind of pushes the head out from the fur. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my knife. I can see here, this is where the ears start. Make a little cut that ear canal off right there. That'll separate the hide from the body right there. Next thing we're gonna come up to, as I'm squeezing like this, makes it easier. I can see it's starting to grab again. This is where the eyes are. So now we're just gonna make a little cut right in here, and it's gonna separate the eyelids from the carcass. Sometimes you gotta go like that. There. And you'll be able to see it all. And the same thing, go slow, take your time. Once you learn the anatomy of them a little bit, it becomes easier and easier. Another area we're gonna do is we're gonna take the back of our knife. They have these glands here under their chin. We're just gonna rub those back. We don't want them on the hide. Makes it easier later. Both sides, they got glands on both sides. Rub them back. We're at the eye again here. Just keep cutting, cut. One thing you want to do is make sure you cut just in front of where you see the hide, because that's just going to take the connective tissue and not cut into the hide. And just pull. Now you can see again, there's that connective tissue. This is right where the lips would be, right where the mouth is on the muskrat. So you can take your knife, same thing, we're just going to cut along here. And pulling at the same time. And you can use the weight of the carcass as leverage for yourself too, that helps. Take your knife, make sure you separate the lips. Okay, we're gonna do both sides. Okay, now that we've come to this, the bottom jaw is still attached. So you just take your knife, just run it there along the teeth, and that bottom jaw will separate right there. So now we're separated, we're only attached to the top where the nose is. Same thing, your thumb and your finger kind of pull it. Once you get to a certain point, you're gonna see this is where the nose starts, there's the cartilage in there. Just take your knife, cut it right off. And that's a skinned muskrat. So next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our board, then our skinned muskrat hide. This board was marked with sizes of muskrats. We got small, medium, large, XL, 2XL, and then 3XL. This is probably gonna be a medium to large. So we'll put them on there, kind of, you know, don't pull too hard, put them on there nice, get them sort of centered. And you can see on here, you got all this kind of excess fat and stuff. That's one thing. That's what I use my spoon for. I'm just gonna kind of scrape that off. Just take the spoon, just scrape it right off. You don't need it on there. I'm gonna turn them a little bit, just so I can get it. Usually right under the arms, this is where the front leg hole is. That's an area where a lot of fat sits. We're gonna scrape that right out. One of the reasons you want to get rid of this fat is so that way it doesn't sit and you'll have a big wet spot, a greasy spot on your hide. Flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. Got a little bit down here by the tail. We'll take that off too. Any of this fat in the carcass, now we're going to throw that out after. So. Again, I just for purposes here to see how big our muskrat is. We're gonna pull them down. One thing we don't want to do, they're called stretching boards. That's sort of an old name. They're more of a forming board. So we don't want to stretch the hide too much. That creates a thin fur, a thin hide, and that's not really a quality hide. So once we get our muskrat centered on the board, nose is going to be kind of our guide here. Hook the nose right on the top. I just grab my hands and I just run them down. Get them pulled nice and straight. Center of the tail, just like that. So one thing, we're gonna take our tacks. I'm not gonna pull too tight. I'm just gonna put one tack right at the tail. I'm just gonna kind of put it just where it's, just so I feel the first little bit of tension. Put the tack in, that's gonna hold my muskrat for me. And then I'm gonna put another one up here right at the very edge. I'm gonna get this one kind of pulled a little bit tighter down. And that's gonna be my size of muskrat. So you don't wanna pull too hard. Just a little bit. I'm gonna put another one in here just to keep a nice line going down. Same thing on this other side here. Now we're gonna flip them over. We're gonna do the belly side. There's this tail area here. One thing I like to just trim this up. I like to just cut that right off. You don't have to. So anywhere you think that it might be necessary for a tack here, so just to make a nice shape out of it. And one more right here. Nice and consistent. A little bit more to be trimmed. And there's a boarded finished muskrat here. We got our belly board, make it easier to come off later. When these hides do dry, they will shrink to the board, so it's important to have, if you're using wooden stretchers, to have a belly board or a split board. So yeah, that's ready to go. A few more things we're gonna talk about here is, I left the saddle on. So this saddle is this kind of this band of, we'll call it meat here, on the back usually of the muskrat. It wraps around a little bit onto the front. You see there was a bit of excess under the armpits, that's what we scraped off of the spoon. I leave them on the muskrats, kind of leaves for a heavier hide, dries a little nicer. So yeah, we're gonna let this dry for probably a few days. You'll be able to tell if it's really soft and still wet, then it's not dry yet. You want a good dry kind of, it's almost like a paper bag feeling. And that's when you'll know it to be done. So you'll take your pins out, pull your belly board out, and just gently pull your hide off. Sometimes it helps just to, if it's dry, tap it on the nose. It'll help release it from the wood. And then after it's dried, we'll have all of our muskrats done. We will either take them to a fur buyer, take them to a tannery for ourselves. We can make garments out of it or get garments made, or just keep it as a showpiece. Another option is the auction house or fur buyers. So someone will grade this hide if it goes to a fur buyer or an auction house, and you'll be paid accordingly based on the muskrat. So these boards here I had made for me. You can make them yourself. I believe there is templates on the internet. I know in Manitoba it's at Fur Harvesters. They sell them, you can buy them in person. There is other locations online, you can order them. And Fur Harvesters also has the templates to make these boards yourself. Or there's the wire stretchers. So wire stretcher for muskrats, it's a pre-made unit, you can buy it, and you can buy these boards as well. People do make them for sale. I'm Jim, and thank you very much for coming trapping with me, learning about how to trap muskrats.